Hi everyone, I'm Dylan Lay, Policy Fellow with Texas Impact. I'm here with Ian from Green Latinos.
Hi, everybody. Great to see you.
So, this is our first COP for both of us. How are you liking it so far?
Well, for me, this is an incredible experience. I, like many others, did Model United Nations in high school. Super nerd here. So to make it here at the very end has been amazing. I come from Green Latinos doing state and local level work, federal level work. So to be able to take the lessons that I've learned by working with communities on the ground to here, has been absolutely wonderful. I have met so many amazing people, all different cultures. The costumes, the food, it's been fantastic. And I think Brazil has just been amazing hosts.
On the topic of the host being here in Latin America, especially indigenous communities, are one of the most impacted communities by climate change. How do you see the role that Latinos are playing against climate change impacting our movement in general for climate action?
Well, for myself, my family comes from New Mexico. We are Latinos, but we are also indigenous and Spanish. That's what makes us Latinos. My culture in particular, Okewinge, which is a Tewa Pueblo from the headwaters of the Rio Grande, and Dinde, which is an Apache group from New Mexico. And so what we know is that Latinos, whether they live in the United States or they live here in Central and South America, are deeply connected to indigenous communities. We share the same communities, we share many of the same bloodlines, and certainly we are sharing in our understanding of the importance of protecting the earth. I think that the continuity of our cultures couldn't be more clear than whenever I get a chance to travel to South America or Central America. I feel like we're one people.
So one thing that's coming up a lot in the discussion about climate change is that young people tend to be more enthusiastic about the issue because we're the ones that are going to be most affected by it. Where do you see the role of Latinos, specifically young Latinos, in the activism for climate change? What could young people be doing more to take action against climate change?
Well, for Green Latinos in particular, whether you're Hispanic, Chicano, Mexicano, Colombiano, Venezolano, Brazilian, or any other group that you want to call yourself, we need more people in the movement. There are so many things to do. It is a challenge to make it to the Texas Railroad Commission or to go to the Environmental Protection Agency hearings or to go to the state capitol, right? And so there's so much work and many hands make light work. And so what I would say is we need people to jump in. I would say also interpretation and the energy that they can bring. I talk to so many young people who say, look, maybe my parents immigrated to the United States or I immigrated to the United States. They've been a translator since they were 5 years old. They've been an interpreter since they were 5 years old. We need more of that and to be involved in these organizations. And language justice is something that we've won victories at the federal level. We've won victories in Colorado, but we need to do more of it. And we have to be real that it's not just about our community either. I don't know about you, but when I go to organize in rural communities, I find that we often live together. And so Green Latinos has translated documents into Vietnamese and into Somali because our communities work in the same meatpacking plant. Our communities are, waking up and our kids are going to the same school. And, we're not the best people to read it and tell you what's right, but we know that we need to be fighting to bring in more resources so that those communities can speak for themselves. And when we work together, that's a win for everybody. And youth, I just want to say, get your experience now because one day you won't be so young.
Right. So on the topic of Latinos, especially in the United States, this is the first COP it's unprecedented lack of presence of the United States.
Sure.
And there's been a big emphasis, especially with the presence of Gavin Newsom, on subnational governments.
Sure.
What is your view on the role that subnational governments could be playing more of the role that subnational governments could be playing in the fight on climate change within the United States?
Well, I think that you need global alignment, but all action is ultimately local.
Right.
When you're talking about your utility board, you're talking about a transmission line in your community, you're talking about community solar, just a small snippet of the environmental progress we need. It will be installed in your community. It will be built in factories in your community. And so what I would say is that it's important that we have local action and people are talking about it, but that's going to play out with more than just a governor. That's about city council members and legislators and people who aren't even appointed who are appointed and aren't elected to offices. But the most important thing is, and you mentioned Gavin Newsom, or you can mention Lujan Grisham from New Mexico is here. It's great that they can come here and talk about it, but if they're going to keep, authorizing more LNG terminals, or they're going to authorize more pipelines, or more permits are going to be built, or they're going to invest in false solutions, then that's not real climate leadership. And it is the real leadership at the local level that I think is what's going to drive them to do the political thing that matters, not just come here and talk about it.
Right. And so we have a week and a half left of COP.
Yeah.
What are you looking forward to?
Well, I wish that I could make it to the water, of course. I'd love to go out into the jungle. I feel like I've barely scratched the surface on trying the food. And I think I'm finally starting to get the lingo and like how to move around this place. I mean, it's for those people who aren't here, this thing is massive. Like it is miles long, so much walking, all the drinking of the water, lines are long for food, and you just go, man, it feels like I'm at a music festival or something, or maybe like a big sporting event. And so I hope that I get some more time for one-on-ones for people, because it just feels like I'm waking up at 6 a.m., I'm going to bed at midnight, and I feel like I'm barely scratching the surface since this is my first COP. And, I don't know if I'll go to another COP in the next few years. I can say for Green Latinos, a national environmental justice and conservation organization of members. We're a membership organization. We just released our 5-year strategic plan, and it calls for building stronger partnerships in Latin and South America. And so that's why we're here. So I think after this, I'm gonna fly home on a really long flight, and I'm gonna sleep and play with my dogs and maybe go to the park with my wife.
Plan.
But I hope that I can continue these partnerships afterwards. I hope that Green Latinos can continue these partnerships, because at the end of the day, like the UN is about humanity and all politics is about people. And so I hope the conversation continues.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.